Hello and welcome to another Black Crow video. I'm Sam. I'm our melee combat expert, especially world eaters. So today I'm super excited because we've got a new codex. We've got loads of different options. I mean, yeah, we didn't get any. We only got the one more character plus the kill team unit, but with the different detachments and the new rules, we've got so many different options to sort of dive into and experiment with and play around with. It's super exciting. I'm here today to talk about a list I've written for each detachment. Obviously, it's still early days. I'm not saying. In fact, I'm excited to say that this codex is not solved. There isn't a this is the best list already. Like that would be very disappointing. I'm glad we don't have that. We have so many different ways we could play this army, and I'm really excited to talk about it. First things first, a couple of housekeeping things. We've got sponsors. They're on the screen here. The links are in the link tree in the description. Please do check them out. There are discounts there. Like it helps us if you support them using our discount code. So please do, and they're all great because otherwise we wouldn't have them as our sponsors. The second thing is we have so I'm going to be creating a bunch of videos for World Eaters for the new codex, right? I'm super excited to do it. I've got a list of videos I would already like to make. Um, Ones like this one where I dive into detachments, but this should hopefully cover most of that. But if you want a specific detachment dived into more and you have different ideas, please put them in the comments. I'll read them. If you want me to do a certain video on like, oh, how do you exploit the 6-inch pylon and consolidate? How do you do all of these different aspects of let's go into specifics of like, okay, well, now we've got shooting, how is best to use that? How are we enabling our combat units to get the most by using shooting units? And different, or maybe like a unit tier list or a detachment tier list, or there's quite a few different options. I've got a few things jumping around, but I will be reading the comments. If you put in a super thanks, you'll be top of the list of like, okay, if someone really wants me to do a certain video, I'm more inclined to do it that way. So please just like, subscribe, comment. Let's have a discussion in the comments. Um, but yeah, let's get into this video without any further rambling from myself. I am just going to assume that everyone knows roughly what's going on. I've got my phone in front of me to just, if it's still a new codex, just to reference something if I'm not sure about like the tiny detail when I'm talking about it. But I will assume in this video that you have a rough idea of what our units do and what the detachment rules are and such. So if you don't know that, maybe best to go check it out yourself, go and have a little read, and then come back and we'll dive right in. So first things first, we've got to start with Berserker Warband. Honestly, it's the one I've been using for the last entirety of 10th edition, which is what crazy almost 2 years now. And yeah, it's I'm really enjoying that, but it has been very samey, right? Like majority of my lists that I've used in events have been 90% the same thing, and then like one or two units change based on like the balance at that moment, where our points are at. So this is exciting and new. Some of the stuff's changed. We obviously don't have advance and charge on wide, but we have advance and charge for a berserker unit in this detachment. The blessings are less important to get 3 because we now just get the combat bless. We can get the aggressive blessings early, right? Like we don't every turn it's not going to be okay, a movement blessing and feel no pain, right? Like we now have, okay, I'm going to get sustained hits and pylon 6, or maybe a reroll charges if I roll badly, or there's lots of different options there for like, okay, I'm going into a load of high toughness stuff. Okay, lethal hits. I'm going into into combat, and they've got anything specific. Okay, sustained hits. Loads of infantry with invuln saves. Okay, well, let's get the dev wounds, right? There's this, I think, takes the most advantage of the fact that we now can just be aggressive with our buffs. And we can obviously still get that third buff if need be. It's a little bit harder to get. It's not just any unit. But I'm really liking this detachment. This is, I think, either the first or second one to put on the table. Um, uh, like for my personal interest, like what I want to take to an event. Um, so this is my current Berserker Warband list. Now, I'll just run through it and explain what I want each bit to do, and then we'll maybe look at some of its advantages and weaknesses. I will preface this that I play majority UKTC, and I think that is a big factor for building lists in the new codex. Is some terrain formats are going to be better for certain models and units than others, or some aren't usable in some places and things like that. So just bear that in mind. My all of these lists should work on all of them, but I'll maybe point out some bits where it's like maybe you don't want to do a certain thing. So the Demon Prince with the helm, I mean, he's got loan up now when he's near some infantry, which is good, but also we don't have the super like most tanky infantry, so you got to do some maybe like wall tricks with that. And he's not, yeah, he's tanky. He's got toughness 10 and but like -1 damage. As someone that's been playing with the Emperor's Children Demon Princes, just -1 damage makes them so survivable. There is so much stuff that just wants to do damage too, and with loan up, like it means they have to come close to you, and then they still can't really kill him. So it's just basically me saying, I want to get 5 turns out of his buff, his free stratagem, or stratagem discount, right? Like I want to spend 5 turns of the game with that ability. I do not want my opponent to kill it, so that's why I've gone the helm here and not like an aggressive enhancement. Khan, I mean, like if you've not been around the right places for world eaters on the internet and it's just been complaints, like um Khan's gotten a glow up, right? Like he, especially in this detachment, he goes to strength 9, right? Like he was strength 7 before, I believe, on the charge, and now he's strength 9 on the charge, strength 7 base. Like it's crazy good. His revive, I honestly think, is better than the fight on death, because you could always potentially have the 4+ fight on death, and there's a strat in here for +1 AP. So even into things with like armor of contempt, he can still slap very hard. So Khan goes with 10 berserkers in a rhino. And that's sort of a very standard thing that I'm sure everyone is used to using because they have 8-inch move now and advance and charge. When they get out of your rhino, I'm thinking like specifics to UKTC. There's like you could have the rhino behind your home objective on certain boards and get to your opponent's expansion with just a 6 on a advance, and you're there. So because get out 3, move 8, that's 11, then +6 advance is 17 inches, and between those two walls is 17 inches. For those people that know UKTC, specifically that is the Crucible of Battle deployment. That you can do that on, but you could always move the Rhino and stage in the middle somewhere, right? This is just sort of one of those things where it's like that's a really nice sort of threat range, 17 inches. So yeah, Juglord with Invocatus, right? And Juglord with Battle Lust and Slaughterband are the 3 other characters in here. So it is 5 characters total, which obviously does give up Assassinate quite well, but none of these are super easy to get out of their units. Depending on, as in like they're a bit tanky characters and things like that. Like Khan is the only one that's really squishy. And even then, he's got a 4-pin bun, gets back up off, on death. So yeah, 6 potential kills from Assassinate. So the Juggler with Battle Lust goes with 20 Berserkers. Now, if you have a deployment zone where if you're going to a tournament where the deployment zone you can comfortably hide 20 berserkers, maybe not comfortably, but you can hide 20 berserkers in a decent spot, and then there's also a decent spot where you could get to stage 20 berserkers. Suddenly you have an incredibly good threat piece to the middle of the board in the mid game, right? Like the way I see it is you set them up conservatively so they can't be shot turn 1, then you stage them turn 1 into a place where they probably also can't be shot unless your opponent's really aggressive in a place, and even then it's not going to be a huge amount shooting them. And then you go, okay, turn 2, I'm going to hit the entire middle of the board with an advance and charging, if need be, 10-inch move Berserker Brick that can auto ain't Blood Surge with a strat. And I've done the maths on it with like sustained hits and the +1 AP strat, which remember we've got a demon prince there to give one of these strats that I'm talking about for free. They can I have yet to find with one appropriate buff a single unit in the game that doesn't get one shot by this unit. Which sounds, it's an expensive unit, of course it is, and it makes sense that that should happen because they are not the tankiest unit coming back. But like you can just spread your damage, right? With the 3-inch pile-in, sorry, the 3-inch, 6-inch pile-in with a 3-inch fight, you can do so much like shenanigans with it. You can get so much movement out of it, especially with like a 20-man unit. You can just potentially, if your opponent sets up poorly or gives you like positions where you could kill a screen in one place or kill a thing over there, and you can just swipe through like 1,000 points worth of opponent potentially with this one swing. Now that's insane, and it requires your opponent to let you. But the point is, they can then hit anywhere on the board in the middle, like anywhere in no man's land. They are comfortable with charging. If your opponent doesn't have loads of crappy screens, which the rest of the army is designed to get rid of, like it's just insane. And maybe I'll find that I put it on the table and immediately it just gets removed every game and it's crap. And I'll come back here and I'll go, guys, I was wrong. That unit is crap. Don't take it. But I also can see myself, if I get the right matchups, just winning a super major with that. Right? Like it just has the ability to go to force the opponent. Like we used to before the codex, we would make the opponent squirm in the deployment. Because of our threat ranges, they would have to sit there and go, I can't deploy where I want to deploy, because then you'll just potentially, if you go first, you could just run over and table me. Which would most of the time never happen because people would deploy correctly, but like it's suboptimally for them to deploy so back in those situations. This does a similar sort of thing in my head. It does a similar sort of thing, but just not in deployment. It does it like turn 1 or 2 when the opponent wants to be scoring points. It's like, oh, I really would love to secure no man's land here, but I've only got, you've killed my my crappy screen that I would like to put on that objective. So now I have to put something serious there, which is just going to get picked up by you, and then you're going to pile in and consolidate everywhere. So then wherever I go after, because it's you hit something on your turn, then you spread, and then the opponent has to go, well, I need to kill that unit. How am I going to do that? Okay, I'm going to shoot it. So then I have to be worried about the blood surge, and then if which means they have to try and stay away from 8 inches from anywhere of your unit. If you've spread out from all of the movement that you got from the 10-inch move plus charge plus pylons and consolidates, if you've spread out quite a bit, you could have the entirety of no man's land covered in that 8-inch potential blood surge move. That's insane. So, and then if oh, okay, so they don't try and shoot it, or they accept that a blood surge is going to happen. So they shoot it with one nasty thing that kills, like maybe let's say half the unit. That'll be really bad. And then then they charge you with something. I mean, you still have -1 damage. If you're against a combat army and they could run their entire army into you, if it was like old World Eaters where it's like loads of damage too, they could just run their army into it and you just go, all right, cool. I'm just gonna pop -1 damage for that unit for that phase, and it's like, oh, suddenly that's 40 something wounds to get through with -1 damage. It's a lot. So yeah, I'm really excited to put a 20-man Berserker unit on the table, which sounds ridiculous, but I would be hesitant to do it as much on other terrain sets other than UKTC. I think on every current UKTC board, in the main, in the first 5 games of an event, I can see a good place for the 20 to deploy, and I can see a good staging point for them to be, which usually is just in front of where I want to deploy them, because they have quite a serious threat range, right? 10 plus advance and charge, plus they're always going to get to reroll their charges or have reroll charges with +1 to charge as well from the battle list. That's why the battle list is there. It's just like the game plan is all going to be about this unit connecting properly. I don't want to fail that, right? And I'd rather not have to pick the blessing for real charges, and I want to save my CP for that +1 AP or for -1 damage, and the advance and charge and stuff. And yeah, the Demon Prince helps with that. But yeah, so this is the whole basis of this list is around this unit, right? So then the rest of it is you've got Jackals, classic sticky and hold the backfield. Um, that's pretty standard. Rhino, useful to get that other unit of berserkers there to try and sort of win a flank, maybe do like a good trade there, because that's the other thing is like you still have the sticky on death as well. But you can have a situation where Khan goes in, clears off an objective, and if they then jump on, they then have to shoot you or charge you or do something about that objective, and you can just sort of sticky that one on death, or he gets back up and still holding it if the opponent doesn't come close, but then they risk blood surge there, because also that could be the blood surge that you choose. 2 units of 3 ain't bound. They are so good now. You put them near this 20-man brick, which when it's that much space, you can probably find a nice spot for them if they're not charging with your army, to just give them the +1 to hit into infantry, or into non-monster vehicles. So you know ain't bound aura is huge. It's going to be a bit, because there's only 2 units of them, it's going to be a bit about protecting them, but also I really like, so you've got Invocatus and the Slaughterband both can join these ain't bound or exalted ain't bound, and that is going to be a flex pick, right? So depending on what you feel like you need and where. So if you need, if there's a big vehicle that the enemy's gonna be like nasty and you're gonna have to try and deal with it, then you probably want to put the Slaughterband with the exalted ain't bound. If you've got, like, if they've got a load of really good screens, and you kind of want to get to their vehicle, but you're kind of not sure how. You put Invo with them, so then you can run through the enemy and charge through the enemy, for the Exalted Ain't Bound. But then likewise, if they've not really got that many vehicles or anything that normal ain't bound, Exalted Ain't Bound can't handle, then you can put both Invo and Slaughterbound with the normal Ain't Bound, just to beef them up and make them a bit more of a missile threat to destroy something that's more elite or something. Gormonger's great, just clearing those screens. So I mean, like, right, normal enemy, like mission pieces, even the ones that are like toughness 4, Goremongers now can just slap, because if you need to, you can give them an extra AP. Probably don't want to be spending CP on that, but you can. They've both Jackals and Goremongers have grenades, so there's also that option. But they when they're on the charge, they're all strength 5, and Goremongers have lance at strength 5, so they're wounding most like chaff on 2s. And if somehow there's ain't bound nearby, like they're hitting on 3s. It's a decent amount of attacks. You could have sustained hits, you could have dev wounds. Like you've got quite good with the spawn as well. You've got a lot of like good potential, like screen clearing, like skirmishing for those like first 2 rounds potential. Because and that's all you need to do with this army. I feel like you get that successful skirmishing. If you win the skirmishing on the first couple of turns, forces the opponent to come to you, and then you hit them with the 20 mil. So yeah, that's a strategy with that. I think this has probably gone into a bit more detail than I was planning on doing with each of these armies, but this one is clearly one that I am very, very excited about. But I'm going to move on here. If you want to do another deep dive into this, or maybe look at alternative Berserker Warband lists in a future video, please let me know. But the next one, we're going to go into another very different one, but complicated one, which is Daemonkin. So, Scarbrand's on the table. We may have lost Angron, but we've got Scarbrand. So I've listed this list as the World Eater stuff, then the Demon stuff. So um, the, the there's a slight anti-synergy with this detachment, the way I view it, because all the strats and things like that are there to sort of make your World Eater units really good. And then all of the detachment rule stuff there to make all your demon stuff really good, um, with a few exceptions in a few places, right? Like, and it's it makes you really want to max out the demons, right? You want to. So this has 945 points worth of demons. So it's exciting that like you want to put that many demons on the table, but it is a bit weird of like, okay, but then who's going to get the strat that's really, really good, that's got lance and reroll to wound? Like, who's getting the strat that's going to have a 4-up invuln, right? Like, there there isn't great targets for those strats, because I'm focused so hard on making the demon side work. So I feel like there's going to be a few different variations of this list that are going to be very interesting, and especially if the bloodletter strats changes. I don't know what's gonna the identity of this demon list and will end up being, but I just need to emphasize this: if you don't know what the bloodletter strats does, go read it. It's insane. I mean, I've been going around like when Mordaka came out, I was going around telling everyone that the War strat was the best strat in the game, and I still think it was. It isn't now, but I think it was then. I think this Bloodletter stratagem competes, and that's saying a lot because I put that on like a super pedestal. Um, and this is definitely in the top 3, but it could easily be the best stratagem in the game because it doesn't just work on my army; it works on my opponent's army. So any unit dies in any phase, I can just be like, there's a bloodletter unit. And the only requirement is that I'm within 9 of the last model in the unit and not within an inch of my opponent's, which means I can just end up anywhere. And it like the simplest, most like impactful just off the bat from the strat like thing is like, oh, your opponent has Ares and Isle, and they come forward and they shoot and kill your unit that's there, or or worse, they charge and kill your unit that's there, and then you just like spawn a bloodletter unit and no more Ares and Isle. Or they've got cleanse and they've moved on to an objective and they have to get rid of you off the objective, so they kill you off the objective and then you appear there and they're no longer holding that objective, that secondary doesn't score, and then also because you do it like potentially if they're doing it in the charge phase or anything like that, like it could be after they've had to declare their actions as well, so like you could have a situation where that unit can't do anything. The You just get primary, right? So Berserker Warband has sticky on death. This says bloodletter on death, which they're only OC1 each, but you're not restricted to be near people, so you could quite often get like 8 or 9 or 10 models on an objective if your opponent hasn't covered the objective. So it's kind of crazy. And that's just the defensive like implementation of it. And thankfully, the way it's worked, there's a restriction on it. You can only be used once per battle round. So there's gonna be this like thing of like trying your opponent, if they're clever, are going to be trying to bait it out into certain places so you can't use it in other places. But wherever you use it, unless you're using it mindlessly, it's going to impact the game to such a significant level. Like I think you don't have that stratagem in this detachment, and you just don't have a decent detachment. Like I think the detachment would play very differently. You probably wouldn't even take very many bloodletters, if any, and it you would be focusing probably more on buffing, using these quite good stratagems as well. So the army list. You've got Invocatus, who is going to be joining some 8-bound or running alone, depending on what you need him to, because he's still not a bad skirmish piece by himself. I didn't mention that in the last army list, but I suppose you could run him alone there as well. I think we don't need to run models like that alone anymore. I think I'm more confident in having enough to go through the opponent, but we'll see. It depends on what your trading is like on this. But this has lots of scoring pieces, so I would probably be putting him with 8-bound, and then maybe sometimes putting them in deep strike, right? So you can have like a rapid ingress threat from 3 8-bound in invos, nice small footprint, can get into decent places. But there's potentially a decent amount in reserve here anyway, so you have to sort of figure that out, weigh that up. So Invo, then the Juggler with Disciple, that means he can go with the Crushers, which means the Crushers can then breach, which makes them very, very effective. They also, the way the current work, as timing of this video, which is what, Friday the 2nd of May, unless they bring out a change to like an errata or an FAQ to the wording, that unit does not have the World Eater keyword, so can't use the strats for World Eaters, but can use the strats for Blood Legion, but also still gets blessings. Because he still keeps the ability, and all the ability rule works on is, does the unit have the ability? It's like your whole army, it looks at your whole army and just gives the blessings to the units that have the ability. And technically that unit has the ability because that one model has the ability. It's not clear It's not great. I would love for GW to clear it up. I don't really mind which way it goes. I don't think that unit needs blessings. Also, because you have the Slaughterband with the icon, you're gonna have blessings anyway. So yeah, I don't think you need it. I don't. It's just a nice to have if that is. But I think raw, the way it's worded at the moment, they do get the blessings. But if you're going to take this army to a tournament, check with your TO beforehand, right? Get a ruling. It's easier than turning up to a table and having an opponent go, "Oh, I don't think that's how that works," and then wasting time having to pull over a ref for it and potentially not knowing which way they're going to rule, right? So knowing before the event is much better. The icon is really, really good with that Slaughterband. 10-inch move, you just get those abilities where you need them to try and sort of stay behind walls and hidden as best you can. But then you can give people that 6-inch pile and consolidate and things like that. So that can be really nice. That's the other part. This entire list is designed about triggering the Bloodletter strat, right? So we've got the Juglord with the Crushers. That's a bunch of mortal wounds. If they kill a unit on the charge, you can trigger the Bloodletter stratagem. They can arrive and then they can charge. You're still in the charge phase. So that's something to watch out for. There's also 2 Forge Fiends in here. I mean, I'm skipping a little bit down. So we have the usual chaff. We have the Jackals. We have the Goremongers. By the way, the Goremongers are there not just as infiltrate blocking. I mean, they are good for that, but because we've got things like Spawn that can scout, but it's not as important, especially this list. They're more there just as like a little scoring piece that you can infiltrate into a safe position in the midboard that have a reactive move, that have the ability to go and grenade something, put out charge and potentially kill a chaffy unit. So that's sort of where they're why they're here. You could swap them out for Spawn in this list. I think wouldn't be the worst. You wouldn't have anything infiltrating in the midboard, but you do have a lot of like speed from your deployment zone. And there's only 5 points difference. 2 Forge Fiends. Now the other list, people love Forge Fiends, right? And they're with good reason. They are very good. There's the reason I don't have them in the Berserker Warband list is one, it doesn't really fit with what I'm going for there. I'm not saying like you could definitely put them in a Berserker Warband list. It's just not what that list things. And my main concern is against very good players, they get to choose what you get. Unless you have other shooting as well, which we'll get to in later lists. I think Forge Fiends are a little bit because they only get the rerolls against the thing that's closest, which works also on Overwatch that because it has to be an eligible unit and they're only eligible to shoot the one unit they're overwatching. So they always get the rerolls on Overwatch as long as it's within 18. But in normal shooting phase, you're only getting the rerolls when you're shooting the closest eligible target. So you can do like limit your line of sight like between buildings to get only see the target you want, but most of the time your opponent's just going to be able to go, oh, here's my little screening unit. Yeah, you're going to have to shoot that one first if you want your rerolls. So you have to get rid of that one first if you want your rerolls. So I think that makes Forge Fiends look better on paper than they are in reality because they won't always be getting those rerolls. And opponents can use smoke and other things with stealth and things like that you'll struggle. Even with the rerolls, you're not doing as much damage as you feel like you should be doing. So, but here, I don't care if you give me a crappy unit that's a screen unit. I'm gonna kill it in the shooting phase, and then I'm gonna spawn Bloodletters, and then they're gonna charge you. And that's what's going to be super nice. I think this is Forge Fiends are going to be another target that's good for coming in from reserve. So you come on from strategic reserve, get like a side angle, put 2 of them into something, kill it, pop Bloodletters out, charge something like maybe at their back home objective, especially on missions like Linchpin. That could be huge. So there's quite a few different ways of triggering that Bloodletter stratagem. So and Forge Fiends are really, really good for that. So I'd care less about being like, oh, I really want to kill that particular like Rhino or something to pop the stuff out of it. But I'm not getting rerolls because there's a crappy cultist squad in front of it or something like that. It's like, this is a headache. I don't have enough shooting to to do the things I want to do, and it feels bad, right? In this, I'm just like, I don't care. I'm just gonna shoot the cultist unit, and then I'll charge the rhino with something else and something, and the bloodletter unit that comes out, and then the bloodletter unit can pile into the stuff that fell out of the rhino, and maybe that the Slaughterband with the icon was the thing that killed the rhino, and now they've got sustained hits as well. So yeah, lots of potential stacking buffs. Scarbrand is there to hit like a train. Like, it does feel like almost everything in this list, other than things like the flesh hounds and like spawn and stuff, want to be able to start in reserve. So I think it's like kind of a bit of like do I really want to start like 1,000 points in reserve? And I'm only getting one rapid ingress on turn 3 and one rapid ingress on turn 2. It's like, ugh. So it's this weird balance of like, okay, what's my opponent got? Where do they want to be by the end of turn 2? What unit would I want to rapid ingress? What unit is going to struggle to get to where the target that I want to put it into? So I think, even though the Blood Crushers seem like such a crazy rapid ingress like threat, I think Scarbrand is the one that you're actually going to do more often, and have the Blood Crushers in sort of a central place that they can just like torpedo out into targets. With Forge Fiends maybe in strat reserve, if the opponent doesn't have like wants to sort of set up a castle at home or all kinds of stuff. So I think this is going to be our most reactive army and the most headachy one for opponents, because of the bloodletter stratagem. They have to play around it, and then you just go, I'm not going to use it here, I'll use it over here. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting one. 3 units of bloodletters are literally just going to be turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 bloodletters, and if they survive the clapback whenever they do come down, you can uppy them back to go for turn 4 bloodletters and turn 5 bloodletters. But that one's, you've got uppy downy flesh hounds for scoring. You've got lots of scoring units here, lots of things that can be annoying for your opponents. Clear out those screens, spawn those bloodletters, do crazy things. So this is my like Daemonkin list. I'm super excited to put it on the table. It's gonna be weird. I feel like there is a good chance that this is also just a really bad detachment, because it's like you only have like half your army rule except for the icon. You only have, but then also, because of that, like the detachment rule is like 3+. If you go into lots of MSU with characters, you're going to get loads of blood type points. But if you go into like other armies without that, you're not going to get loads. I think it's going to be a weird one where it's once you've got it on the table, I think it's going to have lots of really weird strong matchups where your opponent just feels like they can't do anything, and then other games where you feel like you can't do anything because you're just not killing anything, so you're not getting those blood type points, or you're failing the role of the blood type points and things like that. But I feel like this list is the least dependent on that stuff. Like, they're all nice to haves, and God forbid that you run into a Grey Knight or Thousand Sun player and make them cry by just getting 2 blood type points turn 1 or turn 2. And well, if you manage it like really early and just have that 5-up Fiona Pain versus Psychic and Mortal Wounds, their army just goes, oh, I just lost a third of my damage output. Great. And they're already struggling for damage output on the Grey Knight side of things. So it's crazy if you can get, so it's got some really strong matchups, which also might make it very interesting in teams. So yeah, that is number 2. And then the third one we've got is Goretrack. So this is the Rhino detachment, which I think we might see not that heavy in rhinos. Like, I mean, you could see, I could have written a list with 4+ rhinos and loads of berserkers. And I think that's sort of a very simple one that people will immediately go to. This one is me being a bit funky about it, and I also want to try out some more units. And I think the new Land Raider with the ability to breach is very interesting. The Hellbrutes with the ability to reactive move and breach, very interesting. The vehicles our vehicles are actually not awful in combat now as well. So it's got the Demon Prince because I think this is going to be a very CP hungry army. It's got a lot of good stratagems that are going to be very useful, and at least you want to project the threat of, because it's like, oh, you can't you don't want to come within 8 of this rhino because I can pile out which is 11 of the rhino, because if you fail to kill it, I can drop out of it and then blood surge into you. And if I roll a 6, that's a, well, 11-inch threat range. So if you're within 12 inches of me, of my rhino, when you shoot me, you could have a unit of berserkers with Khan in front of it. And that's just crazy. I think I've put the aggressive deployment on here on the MOE because I feel like having that, like, it's quite a large scout threat, and with the other like strats you have, I think you could end like it's got that like alpha strike potential, which can force your opponent to, I mean, literally the main thing for that is just to force your opponent to put a unit of scouts in front of you, right? Or a unit with infiltrate in front of you to stop you having that threat range so they can deploy normally. And I think just having that there is great, but then also having the fight first on that unit would probably also be really good. Obviously, he doesn't have it anymore, just sad, but he's a lot cheaper and he's still pretty good. Like, you can gain CP from killing stuff as well. So yeah, the Unleash Hell was extra points. So I can't remember if the uh, aggressive deployment and fights first, if it might be turn both of those into one. But that's a sort of a tech choice. If you're struggling with melee armies, then maybe that's what you want to do. Because the Rhino ability to hop out when your opponent comes near does set up some really nice, like, heroic threats that the opponent might not be prepared for. Otherwise, I think the Rhino ability is very niche and weird. It's not the worst, but it's just like, compared to the Death Guard one and the Emperor's Children one in context. Because obviously, if we had those abilities, they wouldn't really do much for us. But having those abilities in those armies is really, really good. We got there's 10 jackals. It's funny. I think 10 jackals at least are in every single list. I wonder why that is. Sticky objectives is still good. It's always good. Kind of want more jackals, but it's just fitting, the army. I think it's one of these things where we might see our points come down in future. We'll have to see how it plays out. I'm not guaranteeing that we should have points come down. I think as we figure this army out, we'll realize how strong it is. But if points start coming down, I can see us adding extra jackal units into sort of every list, because they still do this. Yes, they don't hit as hard as they do in Warband, but in every place it's like, okay, they're still decent at clearing chaff units, especially if they're near 8-bound. So they clear out your opponent's chaff, and then they sit there and go, okay, if you don't kill me, I'm going to stick to this objective. So they still have that potential, and I do like them as screens for those like melee mirrors as well. But here they're basically going to be a home field screener and holder, right? Six normal 8-bound with the Slaughterband, with Unleash Hell in the Land Raider, because why not? Because I want to use a Land Raider. I want to shoot 8 last cannons at someone and then charge them, and do that after I've just breached through a wall, right? Like, you breach through the wall, you drop out your unit, you then shoot something, which then gives. So you'll shoot the last cannons into something to try and kill it. You'll then shoot your little Stormbolter into something else, which then the Unleash Hell will trigger on. So maybe it's something you're about to charge, or something that's going to countercharge you, or shoot you the next turn. So you do that, then your Land Raider charges the enemy. Your big 8-bound squad charges the enemy, and then they hop back in the Land Raider. If you do all of that, and that works out, like, it's not necessarily the best thing, but maybe you've used all the piddly shots from the Land Raider to half clear a screen. You've charged the Land Raider. The Land Raider kills the screen. Then the guys can pile in, and maybe they can consolidate back towards an objective, or the Land Raider could also consolidate into that other unit. There's a lot of like ifs and maybes. If you get the right positioning and your opponent makes mistakes, you can capitalize on them. But the idea that you have a Land Raider that that could reactive move if essentially the opponent is like struggling for angles, and shoots the first thing and you reactive move and now you're safe, or and this like hammer unit inside it that can res a model as well. So yes, you might have a situation where your opponent blows up the Land Raider, but blowing up the Land Raider and killing the 6 8-bound, that's a lot. a lot of shooting to do, or shooting and combat, so that potentially we might actually see a use for the revive ability here. Because yes, we're squishier than we used to be. We don't have that feel no pain, but that's still a very tanky pair of things. And it's an expensive thing, but you basically just roll it up the middle and then just leap it into the middle through the terrain. And Hellbrutes. So Hellbrutes. I've never been a fan of Hellbrutes. I'm still not a huge fan of Hellbrutes, but I think in this detachment they can work incredibly well. Because one, yes, they got faster. They got 9-inch move. Their main issue before was they were 6-inch move, but before we had 6-inch move that could be 8-inch move with advance and charge. And it was very rarely 8-inch move with advance and charge, but 6-inch move with advance and charge isn't that different from 9-inch move. So they still have that problem. They can breach through the wall. And yes, you're only doing that with one unit. I've already talked about it like 3 times, but you get to choose which unit that is. And there'll be times where it's like, okay, I can see a place where my opponent has set me up for a Hellbrute. Off I go. And I think you probably rapid ingress one of these Hellbrutes. So you have one towards the middle of being like, okay, I don't want to commit my entire Land Raider combo into the middle. Let's just throw a Hellbrute out and see if it can tag through a couple of units with the pile-in 6 consolidate. Or because it's there, your opponent has to play really weird and basically remove the ability to heroic and all this other stuff. Because a single model is quite easy to avoid heroics with, and then even potentially still get that 6-inch pile-in. So, if you're 6.5 inches away from the enemy, they can't heroic you, but you can pile into them and then hit them there, or consolidate into them. They hit you, and then you hit them. But obviously, watch out not to get yourself killed because it's still only a 9-win model. That was a lot. So I think also the Hellbrutes, I'm taking Fist and Scourge, because a Fist hitting twice or a Scourge hitting twice, basically whichever one you want to do, kills most things in the game. Or most things that a 120 point Hellbrute is going to want to be able to kill. Like, it's not going to run into a big knight and kill it. I mean, it's not like it can't, but it just probably doesn't. And the problem is like there are plenty of targets that will just smack it back and kill it. So you've got to be wary of that, and you don't really want to overcommit into these. But what's crazy about a Hellbrute in this detachment is not just the fact that you can use it to breach, but because you have a reactive move. Now I'm starting to question that, because most of these detachment stratagems reference like rhinos or no. Okay, so the reactive move is just the vehicle. Okay, it's not a transport vehicle. Cool. So you get to fight back when you get hit, or shoot back when you get shot, but that's not actually what the wording is. If you get shot and you're in combat, you can fight. Your reactive move cannot go within engagement range of the enemy, but you can fight when shot. And a fight isn't just making your attacks, it's the pile in, attack, and consolidate. So if your opponent shoots you, doesn't kill you, you could reactive move 6, then pile in, which you could have the pile in buff, so you could go reactive move 6, pile in 6, which means if the opponent is within 12 of you, within 13 of you, you could then hit them in their shooting phase. And then you're in combat with them as well, because then you consolidate as well. So it's a weird combo, but like, I like the idea. 120 points just for the potential of doing that seems crazy. And obviously you got to make sure, don't gotcha your opponents. Don't be like, oh, by the way, this is, you could tell him that you have a reactive move. You can tell him you can shoot or fight when you've been shot or fought, when you've been hit. They won't connect those dots. Please make sure that your opponent is aware in their, before they move their stuff, that is a possibility that you can do, because this is going to be such a feels bad moment if an opponent does that. But yeah, this is another thing of like, okay, yeah, we have better blood surge than we've ever had, but now we have effectively a blood surging crazy distance with a Hellbrute. So I think it's really worth putting them in this detachment. I don't think it's worth giving them a gun. It just don't, like, even with the rapid fire stuff, it's just not going to hurt enough. It's not going to impact enough. Like, you can only target the stuff that you that targeted you, obviously, as well. So don't forget that. if you're doing this, you can't reactive move and then hit a random thing. It does have to be the thing that shot you. So they could still shoot you from long range, and then they don't have to worry about the problem. But then you can just, if they don't kill you, reactive move into like a hidden spot potentially, if you were caught out in the open. So yeah, that's this one. It's pretty standard most of the places with a bit of spice. And yeah, I'm not saying it's necessarily this is gonna win huge tournaments, but I think it can win a lot of games, and I think it's gonna cause a lot of people a lot of headaches. Uh, so yeah, that is the Goretrack one. Now we are moving on to one which is less my sort of style, not really my wheelhouse, but I've written a funny list for it. So two Lords of Skulls. Yes, they're 505 points. I don't care. They're good. I'm putting them in. Two Lords of Skulls. And then Demon Prince with Brazen Form, which is, I believe, Fiona Payne. So we have, I mean, and oh, I've not typed in the enhancement for the Slaughterband. Pretty sure that's on there, because otherwise he's just randomly running by himself, which would be stupid. Let me just double check my list that I did have the points for that. Yes, so he should have the Butcher Lord enhancement on this list. So he can join Jackals or Goremongers, which I think is really cool. It's not a huge amount of Jackals. It's not a huge amount of Goremongers. It's 70 Jackals. It's still a good amount. With the buffs, and you can do certain shenanigans. I think it can work quite well. You can also, I think, early on, like turn one, you spend the strat to then get the extra, like once per game usage or something like that on one of your lords, so you can basically get the 4-up invuln for 2 turns. Like turn one, you go out. Like problem is, right, pulling this army, I said that you could hide 20 berserkers, but try hiding 70 jackals. It's not going to be easy. I think it's doable, but it's not going to be comfortable. And then you sort of run out with them, and there's a lot of potential here. I really like the Lord of Skulls. I just think this list doesn't quite have enough stuff. It's very basic. It's got a lot of like, all their synergies are there, right? Everything works. Everything is part of the detachment. I think the Lord of Skulls, you probably want different weapons on them. You probably want the like close range, high damage weapons on one, and then the more like anti-horde weapons on another, and then just run it. You still want to run both of them forward, but then you can sort of. There's only going to be one position, like one space for like one big one in the middle, right at the front. So the other one's going to be a little bit to the side, and then maybe if that front one dies, then it will come and take that place. I think this is quite a stat check army. Like, how many armies do you know that are going to be good at clearing out loads of jackals and getting rid of the big stuff? It's just I don't think you have enough stuff to kill them back. So I think it's going to be a very drawy game. You've not got crazy, you've got decent OC, but not crazy amounts. You've got good like scoring pieces with the Goremongers, but they're very squishy. So if your opponent gets a hold of them, you're going to run out of action pieces quite quickly. You can res a unit of jackals, and that Demon Prince is there for those extra stratagems and to put the auras out into another spot. So then you've got the lone op in. So like turn one, instead of throwing a big guy out close to the middle so that you can get buffs for the like 4-up invuln on all of your jackals, you can do it with the Demon Prince in a way that he has lone op. It just has to be a little bit closer to everyone, right? I think there's gonna be some. I think I'm gonna see people win events with this list, or at least do very well in teams with this detachment. Not this list necessarily. I think this is a start. I think if we see Lords of Skulls come down, this detachment can get very spicy very quickly, because Lord Skulls are big. They're tanky. They hit hard. They have rapid fire shooting now. They can move through walls now. Like the move through walls is honestly the biggest glow up of the entire like data sheet changes. But he hits harder. He has one more attack on his big attacks than he used to, which is kind of important when you're not in Berserker Warband, right? He's got good weapons. And he's got he can put a lot of shots out. He can clear out stuff out of the way. You're going to be getting the buffs you want with two of them on the table. So you're going to see a load of jackals with dev wounds versus infantry. So these guys take out the big stuff. The jackals go in and hoard down the infantry. The detachment buffs are good. It's weird they're once per game because that's kind of annoying. I don't want it to be maybe if this detachment doesn't see any good play or anything, if a change I would like to see would be that they just choose one of the three, right? And just always have one of the three up, which means 90% of the time you're going to be taking the 4 up invuln, and then you can use the strat once per game to have something as well as that, right? Because if you have two Lords of Skulls, one of them gives the 4 up invuln to everyone, and then the other one gives the was it +1 to hit and wound or something. And then you can just yeet your entire army at the enemy, and it's like, okay, now we're actually doing damage as well as being tanky. But you kind of want to use that once per game strat to have 2 turns of being tanky, because otherwise you're just going to get tabled. So just get a bit of water, and we'll move on to the next attachment. So the next attachment is Vessels of Wrath. And that picture there is a little bit of bait, but also I'm going to put 10 Terminators in the list. We're not going to start at the top. We're going to start with 10 Terminators. I'm going to explain why. So Vessel's identity pre-codex was all about being weirdly tanky in the shooting phase and still hitting hard in combat and getting that consistency with the advance and charge and things like that, right? So it was I was never a huge fan of the playstyle because I liked my Angron. Obviously, we don't have Angron anymore. I mean, you'll have noticed he's not present in any of these lists for good reason. So Vessels is all about, I think, having a unit that is annoying for your opponent. So having those 10 Terminators sort of in that same sort of role as those 20 Berserkers in my first list is like, okay, they're going to be in the middle at the start, they're going to go forward and stage, and then they'll come out and be like, you know, this unit that hits your opponent, kills something, stands there and goes, what are you going to do about it? And this lot, I mean, slightly cheaper than that lot. And the -1 to wound is really, really good. 2 up, 4 up save with -1 to wound is very, very good. And it's 1 CP for that -1 to wound. And you've got 2 Demon Princes, one with Gateway to make him nice and mobile to get him where you want him to. And then, if he stood by the Terminators, they have to get through 10 Terminators before getting rid of his lone op, right? So, or just get within 12 of you, which then you're getting close for the Blood Surge for the Terminators, right? So then you've got Khan and his Berserker squad because they still have that strat to increase AP for Berserkers and strength and AP for Berserkers, which means that unit still hits really hard. You've got Jackals that also could use that strat because that's actually not bad, especially like turn 1 at like clearing out like an enemy chaff unit, having suddenly strength 4 and AP 1 across all of the Jackals. Pretty good. We've got some Spawn. This army likes the shooting. Like, as in, like, Vessel's always had the splash of shooting comparative to the Index. And I think putting the Forge Fiends in here, I kind of alluded to it earlier. The Terminators can just move 7 forward and just obliterate a screening squad, right? Like, they have a ridiculous amount of shots and they'll get rerolls. So 10 Terminators can just literally just go, okay, that screen that you have there, no more. And which means that your opponent struggles to put like, oh, I'm going to just put this thing in front of whatever I want to protect, so your Forge Fiends can't shoot it. So I think the Forge Fiends get a lot more use out of their ability when you have like a unit like the Terminators or some other shooting that's good at clearing out the enemy chaff that you don't want to target with a Forge Fiend, or you'd rather target something more important behind it with a Forge Fiend. So I really, really like them there. You've got some Exalted Ain't if you need to deal with something that's tougher. They're not as good anywhere else, but like I think 10 points left over, and just shifting Ain't to Exalted Ain't doesn't feel awful. But having only 3 Ain't I might see the shift back if I don't find I'm struggling to kill big things. Because I think you could strat reserve. I don't think Demon Princes have Deep Strike, so you can strat reserve the Arc Slaughterer Demon Prince. Have like the gateway one to give your free strats around at the start of the game, and then the Archslaughterer one can come in from rapid ingress. Be potentially you can rapid ingress him into a spot where he's got lone up, and he's only like 12 inches away from the enemy, and can't be shot, which is really nice if you've got some jackals nearby or some berserkers nearby. Because I don't have a rhino with this. The berserkers are foot slogging, so Khan might kill a couple of them, but I don't think that really changes much. I think there's a lot of interesting. Oh, and yeah, the Slaughterband can obviously join either unit of Ain't Bound depending on what you feel like you need them for. If you want to try and use them as an anti-infantry torpedo or an anti vehicle or monster torpedo. I've never been good at writing vessels of wrath lists. I'm going to clarify that. I feel my strength was very much in Berserker Warband. It's what I've done very, very well at with events with. Vessels was like, I'm just going to look at Josie and see what she's up to, and maybe a couple of other people as well. But Josie's the first name that comes to mind when it comes to vessels. So take all of this with a pinch of salt. But I do actually not like. I do kind of like this list. I think it has potential to be very annoying in lots of places. I think that Terminator units, unless your opponent's full of Forge Fiends, for example, I think your opponent's going to struggle. Because, wow, Strength 10, damage 3. There is a decent amount of it in the game, but so you have to kind of be wary with it. But yeah, it's interesting. That -1 to wound can be really, really effective. But yeah, this is my trial of writing a vessels list. Maybe I'll put it on the table and see what happens. But honestly, I think vessels is fourth on detachments that I would like to try out at an event. And I've also got Emperor's Children that I want to take to events. So I don't think this one will end up being in my wheelhouse, but I'm excited to see what you guys have done. Maybe if you have ideas on like how to tweak this or change this, put put it in the comments and I'll interact with it. So yeah, that's my vessels. I feel my throat starting to go. Talking for an hour now. So we've got one left to do though, and that was one that I was very excited about to begin with because it's the possessed Slaughterband, and I like the new model. I don't hate it. I think it's really cool to have a 8-bound leader. I've never complained that we were codex ain't bound or whatever, even though I would always have like the Master Execution's Berserker squad in almost every tournament I went to, or at least the Berserker squad, because at one point I did run Khan with them. But yeah, so this was like I've got loads of ain't bound. I would love to put them on the table. Like some of my ain't bound models have not seen the table since 9th edition because I had loads in 9th edition, but then you wanted not that many ain't bound and more exalted ain't bound in 10th edition. So I've got a decent amount of both. This list would be quite easy for me to put on the table. In fact, other than the Slaughterband, I have every single model already done. Right. So Demon Prince. We want stratagems. There's lots of very there's some expensive stratagems in here, like the -1 to wound is, it works in both phases. So you can either use it in the shooting or the fight phase, which is quite good. You've got +1 damage, which you're probably going to use a lot, right? Probably every one of your turns you're going to want to use the +1 damage. And that's why most of the units are 3-mans as well, because I feel like with +1 damage, you don't need more than 3-mans. And they're expensive, and your opponent can just, if you're stuck in the open, they're not going to struggle to kill 6 toughness 6 3 wounded models with only a 3 up 5 up. So yeah, so you've got Invo that's good leader for them, or could run solo. Got loads of Slaughterbound. This is leaning into it as much as possible, right? Like I want my Ain't Bound to be good. The detachment rule kind of trash that it requires a model to die. Would have been better if it was just when they get shot they can do the blood surge, but even then it's not the end of the world. This army is literally, I'm tired of facing Deathwing Knights. I would like to kill them convincingly, please. So Forge Fiend, useful for just like, doing some damage to some chaff, or maybe like hitting something, softening it up for something else. I don't know. Like it's just the main thing is going to be spawn for that skirmishing. and then you just want to probably full send it, just hit everything everywhere all at once. Put some Exalted 8 bound in reserve, rapid ingress, deep strike. The 6 8 bound is your hammer. If you feel like I mean, here's the thing: the 6 8 bound you probably put with the I think it's the malicious vigor is the auto 6 blood surge, just to put that pressure on your opponent in the same way of like you just can't come close to me because you're not going to kill this unit in one activation. I can't think of very much that has a high likelihood of doing that. So it's going to force opponents to push back when you do come on into them with this unit, especially if you can pile in, consolidate 6 into the center of your opponent's army with the unit. And then because it has a Slaughterband, it can revive a model. So it's like that's quite a good like little tech piece there. And then the frenzy focus is the crit on 5s, which is just nuts. Like that, you put whichever unit you put that in is just going to kill what it wants to, because you're always going to have sustained or lethals up, pretty much. And if you need more damage in that unit, then you can do the +1 damage. So whatever that flexes into Exalted 8 bound or 8 bound, depending on, oh, I'm into knights. Okay, well, it's going in Exalted 8 bound then, isn't it? So yeah, like that's the way you want to be looking at it. Or maybe actually with the +1 damage, maybe they don't need it, the Exalted 8 bound. Maybe you put it with an 8 bound unit so that 8 bound unit can punch up into a knight, right? But yeah, so that's the sort of shenanigans. I think this detachment might be our weakest now. Like I mean, I've sort of said similar with the Cult of Blood, but this one, it just doesn't have enough. Like 2 CP for a defensive strat is very expensive, especially on units that aren't that tanky in the first place. And then yeah, we got more offensive strats, but it doesn't. None of that it screamed out to me is like, if 8 bound become cheaper, this detachment could have like a huge go. If you could run sort of 18 8 bound and like 9 Exalted 8 bound, you are laughing, right? Like you have so much like damage and a decent amount of defense then, because you've got a lot of models, and some of them might actually get to revive models. So I think there's a points value where this detachment becomes very good. I just don't think we're at that now. So yeah, um, that's me. I think finishing up for this video, just over the hour mark. If you're still here watching, thank you so much for listening to me ramble for the whole video. Please, try out writing your own lists, use my lists, do whatever, experiment, get excited. It is the new World Eaters Codex. It's our second one ever. We've got this one for at least a year, but it could be much longer. Be excited. We've got interesting rules. There will be, balance passes that will go over it. We might get tweaks to points here. We might go up in some places, might come down in others. Use what you've got. Get more stuff that you want to use on the table. Try new stuff out. Like we've been very pigeonholed into one or two very, good, interesting styles of lists, but like we've been doing the same for so long now that it's so refreshing to have new stuff. So please, please, please don't doom, get excited, because we're going to have great fun, and the skill and expression in this army is insane. So I'll be doing plenty of videos about that. Yeah, reminder back to the start of the video. Tell me what you want to see. Give me super thanks and make a video about cultists. I don't know, like how to maximize how you use Cult of Blood, and I'll take some time and research it and try it out on a table. Or you want, like, how do I get around fights first now that I don't have fights first? Or how do I abuse the 6-inch consolidation the most? And or all of these different things. Like, how do I prioritize where to use units? Like, or we could even do, like, if you want to see live streams where I fix people's lists, we do stuff like that, where it's like, all right, let's talk about, people input what they have and we build lists out of it or something. I don't know. If you've got ideas, throw them my way. I'm excited. I want to make content and play games. So yeah. And on that note, thanks for watching, and check out the sponsors. Bye.